Welcome to the Java Cafe, Java fam.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. As you know, I am on the road, so no track and good morning from the announcer guy. But we are here today to check in around public safety. There have been a few updates. Public safety is in a real process of transition. I am going to say that Dr. Falk is not really going to speak to a lot about what I found out about on Friday, that what we know as old heads know as the street workers, which sort of morphed into SOAR, the, I believe, Street Outreach and Resource Program. He can clarify the name. You would think I know that off the tip of my tongue. And I got the call on Friday, and to be very honest with you, was not surprised. We've talked about it. We've known that it's something that back in 2013, former Mayor Marty Walsh said he wanted to blow it up and start over. This administration was looking at that very early on, and a lot of us advocated that if that is going to be the case, please don't do it in the spring and summer, and it's now fall. And so some people are very, very concerned. And so all that to say that Chief Jose Masso will be with us sometime next week. I reached out to him. And so we'll be setting that up to talk about that, and also what the Human Services Office is doing, because it's more to them than SOAR, with all due respect. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring Dr. Falk in. He is only able to be with us for the next 24 minutes. There's some questions that have come my way. I have some questions. And then we also want to allow him to talk about, some of the achievements of the office. So without further ado, Dr. Rufus Falk, I am very elated to always say that, because that's a great achievement for this educated Black man. Dr. Falk, welcome back to the Java Cafe. You are no stranger, sir. Good morning to you.
Good morning, James. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir.
Hey, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but we can make sure we get our full half an hour in.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Oh, the full 30 minutes. Okay, so I got you till 9. I started at 9:35, so we have it. Thank you, brother. So you move in a space that is sometimes for folks can be overwhelming. It deals with homicides, protection, of those that are dealing with violence. And so I must ask you, sir, as we talk about mental health in this space, how are you doing from that? With all due respect, as Rufus, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well.
Okay.
I think one thing I found is that you got to take time for yourself every now and then, just to make sure you recharge your body, refill your cup. So just making sure I've got intentional about doing that. But I'm doing well.
Okay, that's great to hear. That's great to hear. Listen, I'm going to jump right in.
Yeah.
And so those that move in the activist space, advocacy, have some connections to the administration. There's sometimes these check-ins, and we checked in, I believe, in, let me back up a little bit. First, I said you really can't speak to SOAR. Most people know you, and there'll be some updates coming today. Most people know you as the director of the Office of Public Safety. And in the last few months, that has transitioned to a senior policy advisor to Mayor Wu. And so it does lead to questions, sir. We also are aware that returning citizens has now been transitioned to under Chief Masso, and we'll hear more from him about that. And so it leaves us to wonder, where is the Office of Public Safety? Is there still a mayor's Office of Public Safety? Where are things with that?
Great question. So I was brought on to be the co-director for the Mayor's Office of Public Safety initially in 2019 in May. Um, Under that office, the Office of Returning Citizens lived. Um, what I would say is that the Mayor's Office of Public Safety, in theory, was created to be that liaison between policy and what was happening in the streets, and then ensuring that we were not only being preventative, but we were focusing on intervention and recovery, and ensuring that we were putting forth best practices to make sure that we were trying not only to try to mitigate the exposure of violence within our community, but try to get out in front of it to make sure we were sort of attacking the culture that was sort of driving retaliatory gun violence in the neighborhood. Like that was the sort of crux of it. Unfortunately, the office never had the equipment to fully do that work. It never had equipment. By equipment, I mean capacity, and by dollars to be effective and efficient to do that work. Um, so so right now, so my title is senior policy advisor and focusing on areas of public safety, which means that now I am fully in the mayor's office. We moved Office of Returning Citizens to Human Services because, to be frank, that there's a narrative. We don't want the narrative attached to returning citizens that they are a public safety risk. We want we want the work of returning citizens to be viewed as human services, asset building, and I'm not sure if everyone knows, but now returning citizens went from a budget of about $400,000 to a little over $2 million to do this work at a rate where individuals who not only are returning, but those individuals who were impacted by a CORI or criminal record could not only receive resources and support, but be able to receive some case management and some essential needs to help them get back on track. So where I sit now is directly in the mayor's office, within the mayor's cabinet, on the mayor's budget, with the ability to impact policy that operates in this space. And what I want to say too, James, is that the view of public safety is we're trying to expand it beyond what we think about just in terms of gun violence. This is quality of life. This is every city that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We're going to go there. We're going to go there.
Yeah.
And so I just want to ask a couple of clarifying questions.
Yeah.
So if I understand you correctly, there is no longer a mayor's office of public safety, correct?
There is no office of mayor's. There is no longer a mayor's office of public safety, and
Okay.
the mayor's office of public safety previously was a staff of 2 to 3. So when we so
All four, two co-directors, admin, and then you had what's his with all due respect,
I know you're talking about Xavier. Yeah.
Yes. And so all right, and I understand that. Two more clarifying questions on that
Yes,
part.
sir.
Is you mentioned recovery, and
Yes,
I want
sir.
to be intentional because I like where you were getting ready to go with further clarifying what is public safety, and so that is a question I'm going to ask. So we're going to touch that too. I wanted to highlight one thing because when we had the We Need to Know meeting, I believe the amount that was in the budget, I believe on the campaign, the mayor had committed about 1.9 million. And then at that time, it was only at 1.6. Joseph Bennett from Yard Time and others were advocating to get back to the 1.9. You just articulated that it is now at over 2 million, 2 point something.
Yes.
For the Office of Returning Citizens. Okay.
Yes.
So that we just want to note that.
So and the additional funding is $800,000 ARPA and rapid housing for returning citizens.
Okay, that's good to know. And so can we just I know it's not under your purview anymore, but if folks are watching right now, have family members or whatever, how can they reach out to returning citizens to take advantage of the rapid housing that just stood out? I know some staff is in. If someone can put a number, I'll put it up on the screen. If someone at some point before the interview is over can put that in the chat, I'll make sure that we share that for those resources. Let's go.
So, a phone number wouldn't be the best way. The best way would be there is an online registration form on the Office of Returning Citizens page. Okay. And if my computer wasn't a dinosaur, I would be able to do both. But what I would say is that the best way and most efficient way to begin the process of being a participant in receiving those services and support from the Office of Returning Citizens would be filling out the online registration form. And big shout out to Rupert Sanders, Robert Turner, who held the shop down as a staff of two, um, um, doing amazing work with limited resources. They finally have those resources. Big shout out to David Mayer, who's now the executive director, leading that shop. But they are ready and willing to support individuals in that space.
Thank you for that. Thank you. And brother Robert Turner was on before. Definitely an awesome brother. I ran into him in the community and I was like, yo, you want to go for that position? All right, let's get into, you were getting ready to say that we're moving, the mindset around public safety, which we know is beyond youth being retaliatory gun violence. It's definitely. What are some of the other areas, sir, that you are, I believe now, having this influence on policy as it relates to public safety? Beyond that, we know what that is. We've talked about it. What are some of the other key areas in which you are now focusing when it comes to public safety?
Really looking at workforce pipelines. So the two areas that always come up for us are housing and workforce. Those are the two main areas that generally always come up when we're talking about doing interactions with individuals who are highly directly impacted by sort of gang culture, or those who are trying to escape it. Those having being able to have a career path and also being able to have a steady home base have been the two main issues. And those have been two of the main issues for the last 20 or 30 years. So it's nothing new in that space, but we're just seeing it even more now. So really trying to be intentional around creating pipelines to careers that are real wages where individuals can afford to live in this city. And not only be able to thrive within the city for themselves and for their families. So looking at the green job space, looking at the life sciences space, showing up our relationships and partnerships with the building trades. And when we're talking about the housing piece, being intentional about creating a housing stock that can impact individuals regardless of where they're at in their search. So we might have individuals who might just be looking for some emergency housing in the meantime, or individuals who might be looking for a room, individuals who might be further along in the process saying, no, I can afford rent. Can you help me find a space? Or even more individuals who are further along in the process saying, I rented for a while, now I'm looking for some home ownership opportunities. So just really trying to expand what's available for individuals who are impacted by COI, recognizing that they have some additional barriers that they have to sort of hurdle. But as a city, trying to remove some of those barriers, but also be intentional about creating a housing stock specific for them. So, James, what I mean, so basically is looking at public safety broader beyond sort of what we see as the tip of the iceberg, sort of getting to some of those root causes that causes instability or sort of further instability. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, then I know why you answered that last question in that context, because I misunderstood what you said about expanding beyond. If I heard you correctly, you've talked about this before, the root causes. I was really centering a question around populations.
Okay.
We know Black and brown men marginally impacted by issues of gang retaliatory and gun youth violence. When
Absolutely.
you said expansion, I perceived that as you were saying, let's just keep it 100. You know that the LGBTQ plus community. We have Dr. Roberts. We have Quincy Roberts, who's the director with that, ensuring that population of which I'm a part is centered. There are issues with trans women. There's also the issue, and it's human service, it's public health, but there's a public safety impact when we talk about mass and CAS. And so those were sort of, when I heard you say expand, that's
you
kind
talk
of
about demographics. I got you.
Demographics, and then so we named the demographics. And so, we got to hold on. I can't see the time here. We got
Don't worry about it. We're good. Don't worry about it. We're good.
So can we talk about what policies from the Walsh administration till now, changing into the actual title of a policy advisor, what policies have you proposed, submitted, and got across the line in reference to general public safety, and have there been any between these two marginalized populations?
Great question. So can we start with the I sort of misinterpreted your question. So I'm glad you clarified it just in terms of
Yep.
expansion.
Yes.
Because I think not even I think I know that traditionally we look at one demographic when we're talking about public safety. And to be frank, we I've had to do a better job at getting tapped in with other demographics that aren't at the forefront or at the front of the sort of what the narrative has been around who's most directly impacted. So it's funny. I just had a conversation with Quincy the other day. He was like, "Bro, yeah, we gotta chop it up because there are issues," and he was educating me the issue that I wasn't aware of. So I in full transparency, I have been ignorant to some of the impacts. So if I'm not a part of the community, I might have friends in the community, but if I'm not a part of it, and I don't have those sort of intimate conversations, I wasn't aware of it. So I was ignorant to some of the issues. So Quincy and I have sort of talked about having a sort of larger, not only sort of community conversation, but a real conversation around sort of how do we make sure that we are bridging the gaps in terms of service delivery, what's needed, because what's needed is probably going to be different from what's needed if I'm thinking about my neighborhood or what's thinking about some other neighborhoods. But in terms of having some intentional, really sort of tailored interventions, preventions, and sort of referrals around resources, because we need to make sure that the right resources are going to the individuals, the ones that they actually are calling for and that they actually need. So what I would say is that there's been an education for myself, and then we've already started the conversation around having a larger, broader conversation around what the LGBTQ and other sort of demographics that have sort of not been represented as fully in our public safety landscape in terms of service delivery.
Got
So
you.
moving, so the short answer is there is no policy right now, and it wouldn't even been effective for me to just devise a policy without having any real information or having any relationship. Like I need a relationship and information from individuals directly impacted before I could even think about devising or creating a policy for that community. So short answer is not as of yet, but we are in the process of having a conversation around what that actually looks like.
Okay. Dr. Falk, I would be remiss if I was one of the tenets of this space is being authentic.
Yeah.
And in an authentic space, I would be remiss if I did not say in general, around the general perception of violence prevention, LGBTQ plus community, the subset of the trans community, and also those that are impacted by substance use. Wherewith you were appointed in 2019, and now we're in 2022, to hear that there was, and I don't know if you were speaking directly to the LGBTQ plus community, but to hear that there was no policy, proposed in general is interesting. And if you want to clarify, if you were speaking to just the LGBTQ plus community, but I'll be 100 and authentic. I know that office did not always have the full support to get, because when you get into this departments and stuff in their budgets, and you're always supposed to help coordinate anything that has to do with violence prevention, period. So I'll name that. But I believe and under the impression that there was a lot more liberty. I didn't know there's a implication in that statement, but there was a lot more flexibility and liberty with the Wu administration. And so we'll use Quincy. He was in place, not as the director, but he was around and accessible. I was accessible. A lot of the folks that are accessible that do the advocacy and mass and cast. And so how are you going to be more assertive? You did name that on a learning curve. How are you going to be more assertive in your new role with a policy title, senior advisor, in 3 key spaces, let alone all the others? How are you going to engage the community more assertively and present policies to the administration?
And this is as well as mass and cast. So are we being specific, or is this? So what I would say is that, so first I'll start with the mass and cast. So mass and cast, just the complexities around that. It's been a collaboration, a collaborative effort. I want to give a big shout out to Jen Tracy and her staff and her team over on Recovery Services, who have tried to do yeoman's work. Sheila Dillon in terms of housing, Dr. Ojakutu, and we just hired Tanya Del Rio, who's the senior policy advisor on areas of mass and CAS, to sort of pull as many resources and thought leaders together to ensure that not only are we acting with empathy, but we're making sure that we are sort of getting to some of those, um, ensuring that the resources that we are providing are resources that individuals are partaking in. And then if there are new issues that are occurring, we are being not only responsible, we're also thinking about being preventative in our service delivery. And I'm gonna be honest with you, it's difficult. It's super difficult. It's super difficult to be empathetic and then also have to balance the concerns of the community and the surrounding areas, and then also trying to put forth policy that takes into account all of those interests. And sometimes I feel like those interests are competing interests, where individuals are trying to get themselves well versus individuals who are just trying to make sure that they can go outside of their home and not step on a needle or bring their child to a park. Like, it's so many competing interests, and just difficult work. And I don't have an easy answer for you, James, in terms of what the policy is. But I would say is that one thing that we're trying to do is, and that's sort of going to be the sort of key word and theme for me, is about intentionality, ensuring that the programs and resources that we are trying to deliver those individuals most directly impacted, both on the recovery side as well as the residents, um, are meeting their needs. It's difficult, and to sort of pull it back to the LGBTQ plus community. I think the approach was that if we build resources that people could tap into, the expectation is that people would just tap into the resources. But that I think anybody who's been in the service delivery space knows that'll probably get you about 15%, 20%
That's in
efficiency.
general.
In
That's in
general,
general.
that's in general. You have to tailor your programming and your initiatives specifically around the population that you want to tap into them. And I think we were on that path, and this is not an excuse, but I would say that when the pandemic happened, it sort of put a pause on some of the innovations and some of the targeted initiatives that we were in the process of developing. I think now we're in a space, again, the pandemic's not over, but I think we're in a place now where we can
President
start
Biden.
innovating and we can start building over, just in terms of like COVID's not going anywhere, but now we're at a point where we found a way to sort of live with it. And now we're in a place where we can start building up and then expanding on some of the service delivery and being intentional around the population that we're serving.
So if I could drive the key thing there is, in any either marginalized populations or in general, what are two key things that as a senior policy advisor you're going to do to ensure intentionality around what you refer to being more aware of? I don't want to say educated, because that may
No,
come
that's
off.
good. No,
Okay.
educate is good. Educate
Okay,
is good.
being more educated or informed around particular, marginalized populations. How are you going to? Because you're the bridge. You're the bridge.
I'm not
Listen,
stealing
listen.
nobody's Christmas, fam.
You're the bridge. Oh, no,
I'm
no.
not
Let's
stealing.
just 100. You're the bridge. Mike Firestone, Tally, and all of them that are the key policy people in the administration. It'd be great if they
What
could
I
come out and hear
what I
from some of the folks in person. But how are you going to ensure that the policies that you propose now, is it public safety is not in your title, but is your focus
it
area?
is.
Okay, so how are you going to propose that everything under public safety is informed by the community? As our Congresswoman says, those closest to the pain should be closest, I believe, to the power. How are you going to make that happen? Two examples.
So again, is this broad, or are we
This
still
is
talking?
period.
Okay,
Public safety
so
policy, period.
I use an example in what we just talked about in the LGBTQ plus community. I think the first step is having that sort of listening session and conversation in partnership with Quincy and his staff, because I think oftentimes, which is even why I got into policy to begin with, we have people who create policy without any context, people who create policy without any real um, expertise that is contextual, and when they might have the best of intentions, but there's unintended consequences that come from it. But also, the efficiency and effectiveness of a policy, it has to be mutual. There has to be some ownership on the population as well. So what I would say is the first step is a conversation, listening session to hear what the issues are, because there might even be existing resources that we can tap into more directly. But then I'm sure there are going to be real targeted initiatives and thoughts and policy suggestions that we can craft. So the first step would be to have that listening session that I can sort of lay out what's in existence, what services are in existence now that you could tap into that you might not even been aware of. And then the next step is, okay, now we need to hear about what are some of the interventions and what are some of the resources that you would like to see. And then we get busy and start writing some policy, because at the end of the day, I need individuals to take some ownership over any initiative for it to be sustainable. The city can come down on high and say we need to do this, that, and the third. But at the end of the day, if folks in the neighborhood don't have any ownership in it, don't have any equity in it, then it's only going to go so far. And I've been preaching that for years now. It's like
Yes, you have. You know, we debated about that often.
Yeah.
Equity is an interesting word, because you got, and you more than most know that, you know, there are some real valid issues as to why some don't engage. From some they can't control, you know, 2 and 3 jobs, children, blah 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 blah. Some
Absolutely.
get turned off. Some look at, you know, elections in 2016 and figure, you know, their vote don't count. And so that's around voting. That's around, you know, engagement. And so we debate about that. You know, I won't call it your mantra. I think you may have said mantra. But you know, that is true, but it doesn't negate the fact that I believe in this time of transition of public safety, with what's going on with SOAR, returning citizens moving, which is I love the fact of that sort of human service approach rather than, you know, public safety. It is just they're come on, when fire went out, or folks heard, you know, I got, you know, a couple of inboxes and texts like, hey, are you going to ask this? Can you check in about this? And there's some concerns around, you know, the Office of Public Safety, you know, not being in existence at this, you know, hearing about that at the same time that, you know, SOAR is in the process of being disbanded. So I guess I'll get ready to close with this. There's one key question that Thaddeus asked that I'll speak to, because it's not in your purview, about the Black Men and Boys Commission. Oh God, I forget. This is why I don't look at the comments, Dr. Falk, because I wind up losing my train of thought. But it is just key that
While you gather your thoughts, can I speak to something that you just quoted? I mean, that
absolutely.
you just stated. What I would say is that this isn't the city of Boston moving away from this work of violence intervention and intentionality around individuals impacted by gang violence. That this is not that. This is an opportunity to be innovative in this space. I think unfortunately sometimes the narrative doesn't match up with reality in terms of what the current climate is on the streets,
Say that again.
and
Say that again, sir.
the narrative doesn't line up with the realities. So what our perceptions might be aren't sometime in line with what the facts might bear out.
Mhm.
And in terms of what the climate is, like I grew up, like you, James, I grew up in the city of Boston my whole life, and it's not perfect, but just going by the numbers, this is the safest the city of Boston's ever been. And I know it's difficult to put it in that scope or that realm, but when we were touting the Boston Miracle, we're at below Boston Miracle numbers. And what I would just say is, this is not to say, again, I live in the neighborhood.
Mhm.
But before I was a city of Boston employee, I was an outreach worker. That's the work that I did. And what I would just say is that we need to make sure that We are supporting neighborhoods. We're being intentional about service delivery of those families impacted. And I think from the city, we are trying to lean in on this issue. This isn't pulling away from the issue. We're trying to lean in on addressing sort of like generational trauma. Like this isn't the I give the example all the time. Like whenever it's a warm day, if the first thing we're thinking about is shots fired instead of cookouts, that's a
Ouch.
trauma. That's us traumatized,
It's
bro.
bro.
That's us. That's compounded trauma. That is us saying that we we can't even enjoy nice days because we're fearful what nice days might bring. And I'm gonna be honest, there's not a city program that's gonna affect that. That's different. That's
Yeah.
taking my city of Boston hat on, putting my Roxbury hat on, and say, yo, we got to have real conversations about how do we begin to heal each other? How do we treat each other? How do we stand up and be supportive of one another? I I saw a few things this summer that really hurt me. Like just like we've sort of the sense of community. Um, it was just I think I want to be a part of those conversations. Like, how do we start rebuilding these systems? Because at the end of the day, I tell you this, James. Like, we got to demand from the city to make sure Roxbury's getting everything West Roxbury's getting, to make sure Dorchester's getting everything Hyde Park's getting. Like, those are the demands that we got to make. Keep us accountable to that. But the other stuff, we got to hold each other accountable in terms of community, neighbor to neighbor. How do we start those conversations? Because it's easy to point the finger at the city, but when do we go? You know what I'm saying, I want to. There's other stuff that we gotta get right to. So
That
go
is
ahead, bro.
true. And that is true. And I forgot what I was watching. I think I was watching a preacher or a meme the other day, and the preacher was saying that the person went before God, and they kept saying, well, it was the other person, and yeah, I did that, the other person, but the God was saying to them, but right now I'm talking about you. And in that vein, because we know that municipalities, states, and federal governments and whatnot, they do these formulary grants and use these numbers to get funding. And so, yes, we must still hold the city accountable. And that's the context in which we're speaking today. You can't negate the fact that you're Roxbury, bro.
Absolutely.
So being able to speak to both. And I believe from the beginning, sir, you're the reason that I went and shook Marty Walsh's hand after beefing with him online, because there's still going to be, sir, this expectation. And you said it to me privately, still hold me accountable. But there is this expectation because of what you just said. And so, just let us know when you need us, because let's be real. There needs to be an inside outside there needs to be an inside outside strategy. You're an employee. And at the end of the day, if folks don't want to, whatever, then sound the alarm and let us know how we can back you. And I know that's interesting saying, as you're on in your city capacity, but thank you, for the updates. I will, along with, some others, check in and say, what is kind of going on. And so I'll wait till I talk to Chief Maso, because there are questions about, the transition. And let's just name transition. Transition is never easy. Just people, ambiguity, trial and error. The unfortunate thing is, in a space in this public safety, there are lives. That is I guess,
Absolutely.
for lack of better words.
Absolutely.
So trial and error is
It's
hard.
difficult to. This is life or death work. This is serious.
Bruh.
This is serious work. This is serious work. It's serious. And everybody can't do it. To be frank, everybody can't do it, and we have to make sure that we're taking care of each other, but ensuring that what we're putting out there is doing its best to help make people whole and hear people and redirect people and sort of support communities, support neighbors to be better than what they were when they came in contact with us. So you're right. It's difficult work, but it's going to take inside and outside, and it's going to take a level of humility on all sides, where we become sort of egoless and sort of just stand in and say, yo, this isn't about me patting myself on the back. Like as I've gotten older, I've become way more comfortable at just doing the work from behind, because at the end of the day, I'm not one of them individuals who I'm not loud, but I'm direct, and I'll do any conversation in person. I just won't do it in certain areas. But I'm around all the time. James, thanks for having me. My email is, you could, if you please post my email, so folks,
Hold on, I think
anybody,
we got some other resources in here too. I'm sorry.
anyone who's ever had my phone number, my number has never changed. So if anybody, if there are concerns, there are questions, let's have these real conversations, because at the end of the day, it's about our babies and ensuring that our babies can not only replace us but move past us. You know what I'm saying? So that's what the commitment is, and that's what the commitment of the city of Boston is. So let's make sure that we try to get there.
Can you tell me your email and I'll put it in the banner?
Yeah, my email is my first name, Rufus, RUFUS .Falk, F as in Frank, AULK @boston.gov.
You know I know how to spell your name, sir.
I'm just making sure, bro.
Make sure if I had the formula straight. All right. So this is Dr. and he's given it before when he was on before. This is Dr. Falk's email. Please reach out to him if you have any policy recommendations. If you feel you're part of a marginalized community that is not often named, reach out to him. And let me just say this, not just, and Dr. Falk knows I don't only fuss, but I come with suggestions. Don't just name that. We are well aware of what the issues are. Do we need to check in periodically to make sure we're up to date? Yes. What are some recommendations from your experience? With that email at the bottom, when you cite a problem, suggest some policy recommendations or programming recommendations to him as well. So Dr. Falk, thank you for coming in. Thank the team that made it happen behind the scenes. One thing when I say behind the scenes, if I could put this out there, and I've said this to elected officials, and in the role that you're in, there is a balance between being behind the scenes, but then as a public official, what you're doing for the public maybe needs to just be a little more public. And that, I'll be very honest, that was one of the intentions of having you come today, so they can find out, get the update. So maybe later on, once things are start getting established, I'll support you having it coming together, whatever. I'll help get it out there. Make sure that Dr. Firestone, Mr. Firestone is in the room so he can hear directly from the community. And thank you, Dr. Falk. We will talk to you later. You have a
pleasure. Thank
day.
You, James.
Absolutely. Stay on, everyone. I'm going to answer Thaddeus's question about the Black Men and Boys Commission. That is not a formal answer. As a member, I am answering. Hold on, just make sure I'm checking everything here. Absolutely. To the team there. So we were appointed, I believe, in June, and it was during the summer. And so we've had the listening sessions. I had to miss the meeting in September that was due to my uncle's death. And so the next meeting is on October 5th. Just what I said to Dr. Falk about public officials, as a commissioner and a commission, we have to be public in what we're doing. And so the last listening session, I believe, was in August. We came together in September and looked over some of the materials. Now it's really getting into the actual work. There are folks that may not be familiar with the ordinance. And there are legalities that this commission are subject to. And so it's a informal, as a member, not speaking on behalf of the commission, it's a work in progress. And so to answer your question, Thaddeus, because that is one definitely that I think should be, there's a lot of comments in here. I'm so glad I didn't look over here today, because I just would have been all over the place. All right. Thank you. Reverend Jeffrey Brown is in the room. Listen, everyone, I need you all to be ready to come out and get some health information. Next Saturday, October 1st at 10 a.m. at the 12th Baptist Church, we are having a Your Healthy Java First Health Fair. We're going to do this yearly. And there are going to be raffles. There's going to be, we ain't giving y'all dinner. or lunch, but they're going to be healthy snacks. And we're going to have raffles and giveaways, but most of all, we're going to have resources and departments and divisions for Massachusetts General Hospital. We're going to have some wellness entities that are there as well. And so please plan to be there. I need you all to come out and pack this place out, do a survey, get entered into a raffle, go to the resource tables and answer some questions, or get your little, we'll figure out whether it's a tic-tac-toe or bingo. You know how things go at health fairs. But there will be some giveaways. But most of all information, the MGH Health Van will be there in the parking lot at 12th Baptist. And so I'm also waiting to see if we can have music, because it is in the church's hall. And so I have a asking now to see if that's permitted. If we can have, clean youth, children, family friendly, secular music, with Nene, stuff like that, stuff that young people will enjoy. All right. I think that's it for me today. Tomorrow is Thursday. I might see if I can rig up a different location for tomorrow morning. Depends on what's going on with this weather down here. But that's it for me today. And again, thanks to Dr. Falk for making that happen. There is a lot going on in the in the space of public safety. And now here, I agree with Dr. Falk on the ownership piece when it comes to this. Let me take his name down because folks are going to think I'm Dr. Falk. I already messed up on I'll hold that correction I had to do on the flyer yesterday. When the call goes out, if there's a Zoom, because we're getting ready to hit winter time, and presumably a lot of this will happen during the winter. When the Zoom goes out, or if there's a face-to-face meeting and Dr. Falk wants to hear perspectives about public safety and suggestions, don't stay home. Send the email, come out, join the Zoom, add your voice, do it. It's hard to hold people accountable when we don't participate, right, wrong, or indifferent. It's more difficult. The reasons why may not be valid, but the fact that it becomes more difficult when you're not involved, it's a little harder to hold people accountable, such as voting. I'm on vacation, so I'm going to do the essentials and get my happy self out of here before this, because it's supposed to rain later. And yeah, anyway. All right, everybody, have a wonderful day. Thanks for tuning in. Next Saturday, October 1st, Nikki, Ma, Miss T, Reverend Brown is already going to be there. He's going to do a greeting for us. Everybody else that's in here today, when the flyer goes out, I need y'all to share it. Invite people that you know. We are Ruth. Good morning. We may, I think Cindy's going to reach out to you, see if you guys will have a table there, Ruth. So keep that in mind as well. Next Saturday, I'm just giving you a heads up that Cindy's going to send you an email. But next Saturday at 10 a.m. at 12th Baptist Church, I need to see you all in the building. For those of us that have not met, for those of you that are part of the Java family and have not met, that's an opportunity to come out, get some health information. All right. We'll talk to you guys soon, and have a wonderful day. And somebody tell me let me be a little petty. What's the weather in Boston? Somebody just put it in the comments for me, and then I'll go. I'm being very petty right now. Y'all don't understand. I don't know what it is about the water, but I saw the storm coming, like the cloud, the rain under the clouds while the sun was, it's amazing. And it does a lot for self-care. All right. Thank you, Auntie Java. She said it's 60, 70. Nikki had to put her commentary in. She said it's nice today. 70. Okay. It's like, hold on. I'm going to tell y'all what the weather is now here. All right. And they moved the rain back to 3 o'clock. All right. It is, it's 88. Yes, Sharon, I'm being a little bit petty. Hey, wait, somebody give me, Ma said it's cloudy and 59. So yes, I'm being petty. All right. Listen, Ma has texted me. Are you watching the weather? Are you keeping up? She hasn't said a storm, but I guess they had the remnants of the one hurricane that just left. There's something over hitting getting ready, circling a tropical storm around Bermuda. Y'all trust and believe you me. If I get any inkling that something major is coming this way, I already save enough space on one particular credit card for emergencies. I will be I'll leave the non-essentials here, go to the airport, and be out. So trust and believe that. I don't play that. Toy. Don't remind me. The only good thing about that is we can sell Dee Dee's Cry and Java with Jimmy hoodies. That's the only good thing about hoodie season. All right. I am being safe. Sunny and warm. Thaddeus said it's sunny. All right, y'all. Okay, 60. It will be 75. Okay. Y'all just like the weather app. Because yesterday I said, and I can't say it because Siri will do it, but I said, Siri. See, and it's going to do it. Hey, Siri, what's the weather today?
It's currently clear and 84 degrees. Expect rain and partly cloudy skies starting tonight. Temperatures will be fairly consistent, averaging about 82 degrees.
So yesterday it was pouring raining. I said, Siri, when's the rain going to stop? Siri said, it's not expected to rain today. I go on Instagram. I took the phone and put it on the monsoon that was outside. So you can't always trust this thing, but I'm getting off of here so I can enjoy the sun while it's out there. I'm going to see what morning. Yo, the water, it's warm. It's. I will never, ever, I won't say ever, but you know how sometimes we laugh at sisters because they'll get in the water up to here and they will not get their hair wet. Y'all should have saw me yesterday. I'm bouncing around and I felt water. I felt water on the tip. I was like, yeah, I might get it wet Saturday, Sunday, but trying to look decent. All right, I'm rambling. Have a wonderful day, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow morning.